Hey folks, today in front of me we have the Minn Kota Terrova QUEST. Obviously we've already unboxed it, we've laid everything out in front of us, and I'll show you what was all in the box. This motor is one boat network ready. It comes with the MKR MI1 sonar adapter for any Helix unit, as well as an Ethernet adapter dongle, again for Helix units. We have a 30-foot Ethernet cable. We have a ball mount motor stabilizer, the prop and prop hardware, the mounting hardware for the trolling motor, the remote control and a lanyard, the foot pedal, and last but not least, the owner's manual and the installation manual. One thing that isn't included in the box that we should mention is a quick release bracket. If you do happen to purchase that separately, you mount that bracket to the bow of the boat and then the motor would mount to that. So if you need to take that motor off for any reason, whether it's service or you're gonna go do boating instead of fishing, you can simply remove that bow mount, set it aside, and go have fun on the water. Minn Kota also offers the MK858, which is a structural reinforcement plate. Again, not included in the box of the trolling motor. The new QUEST motors do have considerably more torque than the conventional motors. So in some instances where your boat might need a little bit more structural integrity on the bow, you might want to purchase that MK858. Also, another very important accessory and sold separately is the MKR27 circuit breaker. What that does is protect the circuitry under your boat from the batteries to the trolling motor. In case there's any mishaps, this is going to protect the motor and the boat and everybody in the boat. This circuit breaker has gone through rigorous testings by Minn Kota for this particular trolling motor. In the information packet is your installation instructions, literature on the One Boat Network app and advanced GPS wireless remote system, and the quick reference waterproof guide for your remote control and its functions, along with another quick start guide for the QUEST trolling motor bow mounts, and a handy reference from Minn Kota to get support for your trolling motor, as well as insider news and promotions. On page 6 of the installation manual, it tells you the tools and resources required, and I'll read those off to you. A number 3 Phillips screwdriver, a drill, a 3/8 drill bit, a needle nose pliers, an awl or similar marking tool, a 9/16 open box end wrench, a 9/16 deep well socket, and a second person to help you with the installation. We install a lot of trolling motors here. We're gonna follow this step by step, but also include some of the little tips and tricks that we found helps with the installation and makes things go a little bit more smooth. So we're gonna go ahead and throw this trolling motor up on the bow of the boat. You will notice there was a previous trolling motor on here that we already took off. That's why some of the carpet is disfigured a little bit. So with your helper, we're gonna throw this thing up there and we'll get it laid out and get ready to drill some holes. So once you have the trolling motor set up here, the first thing we're gonna wanna do is take off the side plates. You take your number 3 Phillips screwdriver and there's gonna be 2 screws on each side plate here. 2 here and 2 on the other side. We're just gonna go ahead and remove those and set them to the side. So we have our motor sitting up on the bow of this boat. A couple of things you want to take into consideration. Number 1, in this aluminum extruded base plate, there's a little notch in there. This notch has to be parallel or slightly out from the gunnel of the boat. And that'll just give you the clearance for this drive housing when the motor is deployed. It'll give you the clearance from the boat, make sure you don't have any obstructions there. The other consideration I like to take into effect is the head of the motor. You want to make sure that's inside of a vertical plane on this boat, just to avoid any collisions with dock posts, other boats if you're coming up to it. So just a couple things that I like to take into consideration before we actually start marking and drilling holes in this boat. There's a spring on each side, which is part of the release mechanism. We're gonna go ahead and remove those springs first. Simply take a needle nose pliers and just disconnect the one side from the release arm right here. And there's one on each side, so make sure you grab both of them. The Minn Kota Terrova QUEST has a completely redesigned base plate to withstand the torque that this motor provides. So because of that, this motor will not fit a hole pattern if you're replacing an older style Minn Kota trolling motor. The other thing to take into consideration is Minn Kota recommends using all 6 holes. There's 3 on each side. So you're gonna have to mark all 6 holes, drill them, and mount your boat with all 6 fasteners that are included in the package. So before drilling, I always check underneath, make sure there's no obstructions, no wires, no other screws or bolts, just so you don't damage anything. With my 3/8 bit, we're gonna go ahead and punch these holes through. After drilling, I usually have a whisk broom handy and I just clean everything off, sweep it on the floor so it doesn't get trapped underneath this trolling motor. Clean the deck off, I slid the motor back in place. What I like to do now is just take a screwdriver and then put it through the mounting holes in the base plate and just kind of line everything up from the holes I just drilled. That all looks pretty good. I'm right over our mounting holes. So then we'll go ahead and take our hardware pack and we'll kind of lay all this stuff out on the deck of the boat and kind of get all that situated and organized. So in your hardware pack, you got these backup bars, which are going to be put on the underside of your deck, between the nut and the deck, just to add some more stability or more fastening purchase. You have some rubber washers, and what those are used for, if you don't have a completely flat deck, you might use those as a shim here or there. Our deck is flat, we don't need them. We have our fastening bolts and our nylocks, and then there's also a small tube of anti-seize in each hardware pack. Use that generously on each one of these just to prevent gulling of the stainless steel nut to the bolt itself. If you do happen to have a situation where it does get gulled up, you're going to have to cut or break that bolt off to get it off of the boat. So what I like to do is just have a paper towel handy just so you don't get any anti-seize on the carpet. And I'll go ahead and liberally put some on each bolt. And you'll have enough. I like to preload the nylocks. So we got our anti-seize loaded on the fasteners and the nylocks. I'm going to go ahead and start one bolt in each hole on the base plate. So we have our 6 bolts already through the aluminum extrusion. The next step is I'm going to take the backup bar and a nylock, and it's going to go in this order. So I'm going to find the bolt, make sure we're clear of obstructions, put our backup bar over the bolt, and then just finger tight the nylock. And I'm going to do that on all 6 of them. So the backup bars are important to use just because of the sheer torque of these motors. If you use a conventional fender washer, there's a potential for that fender washer to actually get a little concave or get sucked into the bottom of this bow plate. By using these backup bars, you're going to eliminate that and just provide more structural integrity to the bottom of this trolling motor. One thing to note when you're mounting this is there's a sensor wire running alongside the left part of this aluminum extrusion, pretty close to your mounting hole. When you're drilling and tightening your fasteners, you want to be very careful you do not damage that wire. If that wire is damaged, your motor will not function properly, and the motor itself will have to be brought into a service center for repair. We have our nylocks and our backup bars finger tightened on the bottom of our fasteners. Our next step is to go ahead and torque this thing down. 2 options. You need a 9/16 open end wrench to hold it, and then just a simple 9/16 deep well socket. I like to use an impact wrench. One thing to note is you don't want to go full RPMs on this thing, just to prevent what we talked about earlier, that gulling. So just go slow RPMs and get that thing as snug as you can. After I'm done using the cordless impact, the other thing I like to do is just double check the tightness with the box end wrench. And I can get about another 1.5 turns on that, so I just snug it up a little bit more by hand, and then I know we're good to go and everything's good and tight. So our trolling motor is fastened securely to the bow of the boat. Those springs we removed earlier have to be refastened. So we're just going to take that needle nose pliers and refasten those springs to the release arms. And remember, there's one on both sides. With their springs back on the release arms, we're going to go ahead and refasten the side plates that we removed earlier. Next step I like to do is put the prop on. So the prop, you got a hardware bag for the prop that consists of a nylock, a drive pin, and a washer. And then you're going to have some leftover anti-seize, which we're going to use. So go ahead and put your drive pin in the prop shaft or armature end, whatever you want to call it. And then you'll notice on the back of the prop, there's a slot. That'll accept the drive pin. The drive pin has equal distance sticking out from either side of the shaft. We're gonna go ahead and slide our prop on. With the prop on, you'll feel it engage the drive pin, and then when you spin the prop, you'll see the entire shaft moving. That'll tell you that everything is engaged the way it should be. Go ahead and put your washer on. Put a dab of anti-seize on the threads of the armature shaft, as well as preloading the nylock. Hand tighten it, and then finish it with your 9/16 wrench. And you'll feel it bottom out. Right there, I felt the bottom out, so we know that's tight enough. The final step of the actual physical installation of this motor is I like to put on the stabilizing bracket. And by doing that, you prevent any bouncing when the boat's traveling over rough water or down the road on the trailer. Bracket pivots or tilts down out of the way, so you want to make sure when you're mounting it, you have that orientation the way you want it. And it also is sizable. So this is maxed out right now, and that little bit of play I'm not concerned about. But if you were closer to the deck of the boat, you could actually cut this shaft and these notches, and this mounting saddle will just drop down on that shaft. So I have that where I want it in place. There is a mounting template on the bottom or the back of this cardboard box, which you can use if you want. I prefer not to use that. So I know this is where it's gonna be. I just simply slide the base plate out of the stabilizing bracket, and I use that as my template. So I know I want it there. I'll just slide it off, and I'll go ahead and use the fasteners that come with it and just drill this to the deck of the boat. I do like to do a cross pattern, just a habit I gotten into. It just makes sure, instead of just tightening one side of the plate and getting it kinked, you're kind of keeping everything level as you're tightening everything. So our base is fastened. We can go and take the arm, slide it on. There's a knob on the back, which you can thread it into the base plate to keep it fastened securely. When you're fishing, if you want to get it out of the way, pull the pin and pivot it down. When you're ready to travel from spot to spot or down the road, pull the pin, put the arm up, lock it in place. There's a rubber strap which will hold the shaft of the trolling motor securely into the yoke of the stabilizing arm, and that'll get rid of any bouncing when you're traveling down the road or down the lake. There's a couple features on the new Terrova QUEST that I'm really a fan of. Number one, there's just a locking mechanism down on the top of the drive housing that the shaft runs through. And with that in the locked position, the shaft does not slide out, preventing any accidental deploying when you're under power driving across the lake. Flip the lever to the unlocked position, and now your shaft will slide freely through the drive collar when you're deploying it. So good practice is when you stow your motor to move from spot to spot, a quick flip of the lever, and now your trolling motor shaft is locked. There will be no worries of accidental deployment. The other thing I like is this integrated bungee cord mechanism that keeps your coil cord from wrapping up and just keeps it a safe distance away to prevent any wrapping and pinching of the wires. And then the drive collar, which I really like. Instead of the knob that we were used to, this just has a quick cam lever. So it makes adjusting the depth of this trolling motor very simple. So the included 30-foot Ethernet, what that's going to allow you to do is connect this trolling motor to your one boat network. So we're just going to go ahead and uncoil a portion of this. And running down the center of this coil cord is our sonar cord. We're going to follow that sonar cord up through the coil cord. There's a male Ethernet cord stubbed out of the front of this control box. That's where the Ethernet cord we just strung up will plug into. There is an alignment groove on both ends, so make sure that's in the right orientation so you don't bend any pins. and then just finger tight the two gnarled ends on the cords. So Minn Kota includes a small bag of zip ties in the box, and what they recommend is zip tying the Ethernet cord we just strung to the sonar cord that was factory installed about every 4 inches, starting about 4 inches outside of the control box. So if you go about every 4 inches, sonar cord to Ethernet cord, we should be good. And you do not want to zip tie either one of these cords to the coil cord, because that'll prevent these two straight wires from sliding up and down or through the coil cord when you're deploying or stowing this trolling motor. In addition to using the zip ties provided to fasten the sonar cord and the Ethernet cord together, what I like to do is make some sort of a service loop about 12 inches long and then bring that down and just do one on the power cord where it comes out of the base of the trolling motor. Now, it's advised not to be running sonar cords and power cords parallel with each other to avoid interference. If you do happen to have interference, the first thing you're going to want to do is get rid of the zip tie and separate these wires a little bit. If everything works out fine and you're getting the performance you want out of your sonar, just leave it on. Just keeps everything nice and tight and neat. So to complete the one boat network with this trolling motor, we need to hook this up to one of two things, either a Humminbird sonar head unit or a Ethernet 5-port expansion box. I've already ran an extension from our 5-port switch box that's under the dash, so we just need to plug our Ethernet cord we just strung to this, and that completes our one boat network. If you do not have an Ethernet cord already pre-strung into your boat, this would be buried through the boat and ultimately going to the 5-port switch box that's underneath the dash. So obviously in this particular installation, we don't need 30 feet of cord to pick up our Ethernet cord here that we've already pre-strung. So I'm gonna string this through the side plate of this vertical rise of the bow, and I'm gonna pull it through. And we can do one of two things, either pull this cord we pre-strung back into the bow or leave it pulled out. I think I'm gonna pull it through and we'll make our connection here underneath the bow. We'll fasten that securely and then we'll go ahead and coil this and zip tie it and tuck it underneath the bow of the boat. So our next step in the installation process to supply power to this trolling motor. Now, Minn Kota did a very good job and already has done the homework for you on selecting the right conductor, gauge, and circuit breaker sizing. So in your owner's manual, I believe it's on page 11, you'll find a small table there that'll tell you what's going on. This particular boat is brand new. It was already pre-wired by the factory. I did verify that the wire they use coming from our batteries to our receptacle are sufficient enough to supply this trolling motor with power, so we don't need to do anything with that. It does have a receptacle in the boat. We will utilize that. The other thing to mention is that most trolling motors from Minn Kota out of the box come with 2 ring tongues. Obviously, that's not going to work. So what we're going to do is remove the plug from the trolling motor we removed from this boat and reuse that plug on this trolling motor. Minn Kota does offer a very robust and specifically engineered power receptacle and plug for this trolling motor. It's the MKR28. We're not going to be using that setup in this particular installation because the boat had already come pre-wired with the receptacle. That particular part is sold separately, so if you are going to use that, make sure you do pick up that MKR28 when you purchase your motor. So we removed the plug from the old trolling motor. And when I did that, I made note in the back of this plug, there's 3 sockets or receptacles, if you want to call them. I know number 1 was negative and number 2 was 36 positive. So we need to make sure we have that in the right orientation. So we're going to slide the casing over our lead wire. We're just going to simply cut these ring tongues off and dispose of them. We're going to strip off some insulation. This particular plug has some small barrels we slide over the wire just to keep the wire from spreading out as you're tightening the set screw. So we'll slide those barrels over our exposed wire. We'll put number 1. 1 is battery negative. 2 is 36 positive. We'll slide our barrels into the back of the plug, then just snug up the set screws that are part of the plug assembly. Then we'll slide our plug cover back over, line the arrows up, install the 3 screws we removed earlier. Now our plug is complete. We'll go ahead and plug it in, hit the power button. And we do have power. Okay guys, this trolling motor is completely installed on the boat, but there's 4 important steps we need to perform to optimize the motor performance of this Minn Kota Terrova QUEST. If you reference your quick start guide that was in your hardware packet, the first step we want to do is download the One Boat Network app. Whether it's an Android or an Apple phone, you go on the appropriate store and download that free app. Once the app is downloaded, you're going to want to pair your phone to the trolling motor. And you're going to go into your Bluetooth settings on your phone. On the head of the trolling motor is a pair button. You're going to press and hold that. And then you'll see Minn Kota Controller 4.0 pop up on your Bluetooth settings page on your phone. Press that, and we are now connected. Once that process is done, the other thing you're going to want to do on your device is step number 2 in your quick start guide, and that's to perform the keel offset procedure. And what that does is it aligns the built-in heading sensor of the trolling motor with the keel of the boat, just to give you more accurate spot lock and jog features. Step 3 of the quick start guide is to program the One Boat Network button on your foot pedal. By default, that button is programmed for autopilot. Step 4 of the quick reference guide is to designate the lower unit park position. Out of the box from the factory, it comes with the prop orientated on the port or left side, and then we're going to leave it in this situation. If you do choose to change that and make the motor stow with the prop on the right side or starboard side, you can do that in step 4 of the app. And also, be sure to take a minute to register your trolling motor at minnkotamotors.com to stay up to date on information regarding your trolling motor. You can also enter your trolling motor's serial number to quickly and easily connect with Minn Kota's customer service and other helpful features. The serial number can be found on the inside left-hand portion of the base plate, which is right there. So there's 4 ways to control your Minn Kota trolling motor. Number 1 is with the wireless remote that's already pre-programmed to the trolling motor. Has a lanyard with it, very easy. Functionality of it works real well. It also includes the wireless remote quick reference guides, waterproof piece of paper, which is good to put in the glove box of your boat, quickly refer to it if you need to. Another controlling mechanism is your foot pedal. You can do most functions on your foot pedal as you can on your remote. That'll plug into this wire hanging out of the base plate. You have your foot pedal, you have momentary prop, you got left and right, you got left and right toe heel, you got your One Boat Network programmable button, you have a constant prop, spot lock, and also your speed. Another option is the One Boat Network app that we already downloaded on our phone. You can control your motor with that. And the 4th option is when this is connected into a One Boat Network to a Humminbird head unit, whether it's Helix, Solix, or Apex, you can control this trolling motor from the head unit. Out of the box, the Minn Kota Terrova QUEST is going to have a 14-pin sonar plug. That's plug and play into a Solix or Apex Humminbird head unit, right there. If you're not running either one of those and you're running Helix, we mentioned that MKR MI1 earlier, and that's this adapter cord that'll convert the trolling motor 14-pin to a Helix 7-pin. So that'll give you sonar from your trolling motor to your Helix unit. And they also include the Ethernet adapter dongle, which will go from the Ethernet cord coming out of the trolling motor to the Ethernet port on the back of your Helix. So that completes the installation of our Minn Kota Terrova QUEST. As always, please refer to your installation manual if you have any questions.